Hey there, and welcome back to Raymore Repair. Glad you joined us. This is our next project, and this is a CRF450, and this is a 2005 model. And if you want to know how I know that by just looking at it, it says so right there. Yep, doesn't take a genius sometimes. This has got some neat little things on it. We have an FMF pipe on this thing. We got a kickstand on it, and this also has a recluse clutch in it. Can't see that, but I know that nonetheless. But we're going to do a top end on this thing. We're going to check it out and see what the valves are at. We're also going to go on and tear down and replace the piston or rings, whatever it needs there, and work our way back out from there. So that's what we're going to do to this sweetheart. Let's go ahead and get started. First up, and almost like any repairs on one of these, we are going to remove the seat. There's two bolts on this thing. Hold the seat on. They also hold the side covers on, or one of the bolts for the side cover. Step one is done, and this is always the time you get to see how the air filter looks on one of these. And this one is not super dirty, but it's not super good either. Looks like I won't need an 8mm. Just happen to have one right here. Hopefully these walnuts, the brass inserts, will hang in there. So far, so good. Now, since we know this is going to be down for a week or so, I'm going to start the screws back in where they came from. That way, we'll have less screws to lose later. All right, we're going to do the same thing on this side, except it looks like we can do it all with an 8mm. This does have some nice radiator guards and supports on it. These will come off with the fuel tank by just taking these two bolts out. Pull him out. There should be a collar in there as well. There is. Holy cow, that baby, look at that. Now these kind of have a remote petcock on them. So we're just going to take the petcock loose here. There we go. There we are. One fuel tank removed. So I went ahead and pulled the muffler off this thing while we were in the air compressor timeout, so to speak. So pull the side cover off and the muffler itself. Now we'll pull the header pipe off here. Turns out I don't have a spring fuller, but I do have some funky vice grips. And sometimes that works just as well. Now we'll go ahead and take the two nuts off here. They're 12mm headed nuts, and I'm going to give them just a squirt, just to encourage them to come loose. Well, shoot, even the other one come loose. Of course, it fell in the skid plate, but we'll get it later. So we're going to go ahead, there we go. Now it's even looser. I think the threads are okay though. It didn't seem like it was pulling. Now these top ones, I'm about to have a faux pas here. These need to be a hinge. So we're going to start these back in and just leave them loose. All that noise was the kickstand spring coming loose. Now then, see if we can pop this boot off the carburetor and then rotate this up out of the way. I don't know how in the world to film this while I'm doing it, so you're gonna have to trust me. There we go. Now we can take and rotate our whole tail section up and out of the way. Like so. We want it about here, so it's not in our way getting to the top end or getting the carburetor out, either one. There we go. We'll leave it just loose enough we can move it by hand. I think that'll do pretty good right there. We're going to take our top engine mounts loose. Set the bolts down there. Get this lower one with our actual correct size socket. And our nut's spinning on the other side, so let me get a wrench on it. Well, I'm going to try going to the other side and fiddling with this one, because it's pretty exposed over here, right here. Now then, get my wrench over here. She's tight no more. Bebop these out of the way. Go to our engine mount here, pull that bolt out farther. There we go. Once again, we'll start these bolts back in here, so we're not hunting for as many later. There, our carburetor's loose. See if we can work it up out of here. We're going to go through this carburetor as well. All right, now we're going after this one. Man, everything on here is either loose or tight. Not much of a happy medium. It's all right, we'll fix what we can. Take our throttle cables loose. Get down on the nut portion of that. There's one. And two. Now also on this thing, on the other side, we have a throttle position sensor. Even though this is a carburetor, it uses that to determine ignition timing. So we got to unplug it. We'll set the carburetor kind of to the other side. Get to our connector here. It's got a tab on it. You just simply push down and then pull it apart. And you know when I say simply, that means something's not going to work right. There we go, just like that. Just got to hold my mouth right in one thing or another. Now we got a choke cable, I'm sorry, a hot start cable to deal with. Of course, all you're really looking at is the back of my hand. There is the hot start cable. Carburetor is free. Now if you're wondering what the heck the hot start is, it's kind of like an anti-choke. You can pull the hot start and it creates a passage that goes around the carburetor and lets air in without pulling fuel in. Because most of the time when these things won't start hot, they are just getting too much fuel. So it's a way to get less fuel and more air into the engine so this thing will fire up. All right, for filming reasons, I decided to go ahead and take the subframe completely off so I can get you this really cool down the throat shot. So that's what we got going on. Probably gonna see the back of my hand a lot, but you'll have an idea what's going on. We're just going to take a 10mm T-handle and take these 3 screws out of the cam cover. And this is where we're going to start tearing into the engine. Watch out. And there we go. There is the original Unicam design right there. Kind of cool, huh? Let me roll it over so you can watch everything go ud-and-uddin'. Well, not really ud-and-uddin', but you know. Now get an idea, you're looking from the back and down on this thing. So I'm going to slowly kick this thing over and we can kind of get an idea of what's going on with our cam. There goes our exhaust. Now the other 2 lobes are pushing the intake down. Now we're coming up on top dead center. That was a decompressor. We should be getting really close, right about there. Let's take a look at the marks. Well, you just stay there. I'll take a look at the marks. Right there is top dead center. The cam chain has there's a tiny bit of slack in it, but it's not too bad. I'll tell you what, let me get you down out of the rafters there and we'll pull the cam chain tensioner and we'll see how much tension it has left. Right about there. This is our cam chain tensioner. And what we're going to do is we're not going to take this bolt loose. We're going to crack it loose but not take it out. And then we're going to take the other 2 out and we're going to see how far this pushes back before it quits pushing. And that'll let us know how worn the cam chain is and how much slack we actually had left. We're only cracking this loose because it's way easier now than it is later. There, that's all we're going to give that. Now we're going to take our inside bolt and back it clear out because it's harder to get to. You may see some dripping of oil, that's fine. And we can see we're starting to get just a little bit of a crack here. We know that it is doing its job. But the question is how much? Ooh, not much at all. That's it. Yep, I'm going to highly recommend putting a cam chain in this as well. Just not much left there. Now then, our chain is super loose because obviously the adjuster's out. Now we can go ahead and pull our cam out at this point. I'm going to put you back up on top and we'll continue on from there. Is that better for light? Yeah, I think so. We're going to stick a couple of these bolts back in. This is the wrong one here. This is going to take a little bit shorter one. There we go. And we just want to do this so we can get these cam bolts knocked loose. Hot dog. There we go. Now we can pull our sprocket off. Take the chain off it, pull our sprocket out. We're just going to let this fall in here because we'll retrieve it later. And pull this whole rocker assembly out of here. Alrighty, this is something you have to really watch out for here. You see this right here and this right here? These are loose pieces that can fall down your cam chain tunnel if you're not paying attention to what's going on. In this case, it's not too big a deal because we're going to replace the cam chain. But if you weren't, these things are very easy to lose down in there. Now the shim, you'll miss it. I'm going to put it back in the bucket it belongs in, and then this little dowel pin right here, We'll grab a hold of him right here. These are notorious for getting down in the bottom of the engine, and it tears stuff up when that happens if you don't get it back out. One right here, and Mr. Radiator will be out the way. There we go. There we go. Well, that one's not going to fit in there. Doggone it. To bust it out all old school. Oh, that one was much looser. That wasn't too bad either. All right, I think I can get them with a shorter handle now. Don't forget the washer. It's mighty important. Got to have the washer. Got the washer with that nut. Alrighty, let's see what we got now. I don't remember having to pull those coolant elbows off before, but this one didn't like it. There we go. It got us ahead. Gotta take our one bolt out here on the other side of the cam chain tunnel. You can't quite see it, but you can probably imagine it. I'll just keep giving this a twirl till it comes out. Speaking of a twirl, why don't you twirl on down to that comment section and tell me what I'm doing right or wrong, and hit that subscribe button and like the video. That helps me out, doesn't cost you a thing. In the meantime, I'm just about done twirling this bolt. Looky there. Get it up off the dowel pins. Pop this sweetheart on off here. Take a look and see what we got. We'll look at these parts here in a moment. Right now, we're just wanting to get it apart. Get our cam chain up there out of the way. Roll this thing around till we get the top dead center, or pretty close. Somewhere near there. I'm going to leave our cam chain hanging out over here. There's definitely some wear on the sides of the piston. We'll cover that in a minute. Let's pop that piston out of there. See what we got. Now, if you're wondering why I'm sticking a rag down here before I pull the piston out, it's because I'm getting ready to pull this circlips out, and I just don't want them to fall down in the engine. That just makes it a bigger problem than it ought to be. All right, as usual, I'm going to try to get my hand in the way as much as possible. There's a little slot in the piston right here that you can reach in and grab that circlip. Look at that. Sometimes just stepping back and, now see how I lost that in the engine when I did put the rags in. Sometimes stepping back and thinking about it a minute solves the problem. Probably best to do that before brute force comes along. Ooh. We got some pretty serious scratches on there. And our piston. Like I say, we'll check that stuff out here in a little bit. Right now, what we want to check out is the end of this rod, because it looked like there's some scratches on that wrist pin. Alrighty. What I'm looking at in this connecting rod right here, you can see there's some discoloration right there on the back side. That's a sign that the piston pin has eaten through the outer coating in that rod. If we look at the other side of it, get my light where you can see something here. We can see that is there, but it's got some wear, quite a bit of it. Yeah, if we're gonna put a rod in it, that's gonna be a whole different story. Well, that's too bad because the bottom end feels great. Well, we'll let the owner make the decision on that. All right, let's take a look at some of our pieces here. Start with the piston. Our rings are free. That's good. I got a little sign of wear on the skirts. Of course, there is no skirts on the side. Yeah, it's clear through the machining. Let's see what that cylinder looks like. Let me run a rag through here real quick so we're not looking at where oil is and thinking it's an issue. All right, let's take a better look at this. Get you some better light here, maybe. I can put a dial bore gauge to this, but there's nothing wrong with this cylinder. Not at all. Flip it over, wipe away my marks there, and you can see the crosshatch in there. And of course, on the sides there is too. Most of the wear is going to be at the front and rear as the thrust of the piston works. Thrust of the piston. You can insert your own joke there, that's fine. That's not too bad. Now let's carefully flip our head over and see what our valves look like. I'm going to put my fingers on top of these shims, and then I want to roll it over. Oh yeah, we got some valve wear. That intake valve was sunk way in there. That was not quite so bad. But our intakes are fairly clean. You can see down in there. Yeah, can you? Yeah, okay. Fairly clean down in there. So yeah, we'll be going through the head because those valves have no lip left there. They're sinking in. We'll pop the valves out of here and they're going to have a little indentation in them on the valve seating surface where it meets the seat. The mating surface, I guess I should say. You can see how the exhausts are sticking up a little bit. That's how they all should be. And I think this has kibble white valves in it. In other words, stainless steel or something instead of the original titanium valves. This is the wrist pin. Goes through the piston and through the rod. If you're limey, you're going to call this thing a gudgeon pin. But I can grab that with my fingernail. I can feel it. And there's some pretty serious scratching on this thing. See if I can get the light a little bit better for you. Nope, that's just washing it out. That's the kind of things we're looking for when we're tearing these down. This bike was running. He just said it got hard to start, and that's going to be because those intake valves are seating in the head. They're working their way in. Alrighty. Once again, thanks for watching. Make sure you comment, like the channel, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. I appreciate it. Next video will be pulling this head apart and going through it or the carburetor, one of the two. Depends on what we got going on. And if he wants the crankshaft replaced, we'll end up tearing the rest of the engine down as well. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of this. But I want to break this down into pieces so we don't have a 2.5 hour long video. I want to break it down into subjects. So this is the teardown. And the next one we'll do an inspection video on different items throughout the engine. And rebuilding the head. We're going to cut the valve seats, put new valves in this thing, and then go through the carburetor on it. I don't know if we're going to need a carb kit or not for that. Well, we'll find out. Thanks for watching. God bless.